What is going on? Welcome to the channel. I am the King Koopa and thank you for stopping by. So today we're going to be assembling our 6.0, our LQ9 Escalade motor to go into our little single cab short bed truck back there. It's going to be all-wheel drive with a 4L80 Nitrous. Should be pretty fun. I've been needing to get this truck done, so I'm stepping it into high gear right now. I actually was working on the Nitrous right now. We got all of our wiring diagrams laid out, our new relay panel that we're making. And I hate wiring, so that was just giving me a big headache. So I took a break from that. So I figured we'll assemble the motor. Right now we got her all wrapped up. Let's check her out real quick. So I did do a little cleaning in this area. We have a bunch of our parts here. We got our LS engine builder's book. We're going to follow that step by step. And then we have our stainless steel top with our clean work surface. This is where all of our engine internal parts are going to be. Got all of our gasket makers, our assembly lube, our lifter trays, oil pump, ARP, Harmonic balancer bolt, new lifters, new timing chain, billet timing chain, some ARP head studs, and our new cam motion cam. That thing is a big boy. Pretty excited for that. We have some of our older engine parts underneath there. And hiding right over there in the corners are Frankestein heads, a new drill press we just picked up, which is not new. It's like 1980s, but pretty beefy. So let's check out the motor. Look at that thing. Before we do get started, I would just like to let you know this is just following me on the journey of this motor right now. We're not doing a straight up how-to like some of my other videos where I show you like literally every step and every torque and stuff like that. If you are serious about doing LS motors, I highly suggest you get in this book. This thing tells you way more information than what I could tell you. That's for sure. So we're gonna get started by pulling our camshaft out. We're gonna get this cleaned. Shush. We're going to get this pulled out. We're going to spray it down with some brake cleaner, get it all nice and clean, make sure there's no metal shavings on it. After that, we're going to squirt some heavily coated engine assembly lube. We're going to put engine assembly lube on it, and then we're going to just hit it in there with a sledgehammer. We're going to start pre-lubing some of these bearings that we can easily reach. Now we're going to lube up our camshaft, heavily coat this thing. Stuff's like maple syrup. I probably did way more than what you need, but this motor isn't going to run for probably another week or so. So I know a lot of this assembly lube is going to end up running to the bottom in the oil pan. So we'll just heavily coat her, make sure it slides in there nice and easy. All right, little buddy. Let's go. Take a little bit in. Like a glove. Next up is going to be our cam retainer plate. This is an important part of the LS motor. If you guys are doing a cam swap or anything like that, if you get in here, this gasket right here tends to wear out and will leak oil. This is what supplies oil to your camshaft, keeps all those lobes nice and oiled up. And this gasket, if it leaks, it'll end up burning up your camshaft and you won't be able to tell because it's internally inside the engine. So I basically say that these are one-time use only. So if you take this off, you want to make sure you put a new one on. And if it has Torx head screws, they are a different torque than the regular Allen head ones. And we're going to run a little assembly lube on here, get that gasket lubed up. So we're about to install our billet timing chain next, nice and shiny. So we have our top camshaft gear, and then we have our bottom crank gear, along with the alignment gear if you want to degree your camshaft manually. Before we do this, some people soak this in oil, some people don't. We're going to have to get the old crank gear off. These harmonic balancer bolts are one-time use only unless you buy the expensive ARP bolt, just so you guys know. What the heck's wrong with this thing?
Ain't got no gas in it.
Because of the DeWalt. Ow! It worked there. There we go. Yeah.
What's up, the 10?
Yeah, it was trying to run away. Timing chain's done. Before we move any farther, I have our timing chain torqued, but I do want to take a second to talk about how to advance and retard the timing on the timing chain. If you're interested about all the details on this, I'll put up a picture right now. You can pause it, go through and read it. But the quick summary, you have your cam gear, you have your crank gear, and here is the key on the crank. That crank key is going to line up with the 0 on our crank gear. There's a row of numbers here, +2, +4, +6, +8, -2, -4, -6, -8, and then a second row of numbers on the teeth, 0, +2, -2. So you're going to line up the 0 with the key if you do not want to do anything with the timing. Next, you'll line up the 0 on the tooth with the dimple on the cam gear. If you wanted to advance it or whatnot, you would simply take this off, slide it back on to -2, +2, whatever you wanted to do. Moving on to the oil pump, we are going to pull out the red spring. 1 spring, 2 springs, red spring, blue spring. We're going to put the blue spring in and put on our new nut. The oil pump supplied with a high pressure relief spring. If a lower pressure approximately decrease of 8 to 10 pounds is desired, remove the red spring and replace it with the blue spring. And then we're going to torque this to 106 inch-pounds. We finished installing our pickup tube, and now there are 2 different types of pickup tubes on the LS platform. So there are 2 different types of O-rings. You want to be very careful and make sure you don't choose the right one. There are some instructions that I'll put in the video right now. You can pause it, you can go ahead and read that to make sure that you have the right pickup tube and right O-ring. If you have the wrong one, it has the potential to not seat properly and will not have any oil pressure on startup. We're going to reinstall these little dowels that go in the corner. There's these little half moon C-shaped pieces. These help align the heads on install. You might have to use a wrench. You might have to use a set of pliers to squeeze those to get those in and lightly tap them with a hammer. After that, we're going to install our head gaskets. We use some copper Permatex. It's a copper spray gasket. This is going to help seal everything up. You don't need to use this with these multi-layer steel gaskets, but better be safe than sorry. Boom, there we go. So we were making some good progress, but we started torquing the heads, and 2 of the bolts on top started squeaking and doing some jerking motions, and I did not like it. So we had to pull the heads back off, and we did some inspections, and this one down here both have a little bit of rust in them at the very bottom of the holes. So we hit that roadblock. We had to go pick up an ARP thread chaser tap. So this thing's super long, and that'll reach all the way down in there, clean up them threads. We already did the driver's side of the block. We masked it off, and then we did rotate the engine upside down, and we tapped it upwards, so if any shavings did come out, they would just fall right out on the ground. So now we're going to take this tape template off, transfer it to the other side, run the tap over there, and then make sure the block is nice and clean, and then we can put our head gaskets on and put our heads back on. She is looking pretty nice. Those heads are a piece of art. So we've been cruising right along. We installed our oil pressure sensor, our cam and crankshaft sensors down there on the side of the block. Then we can install our valley cover, the gasket, and the 2 knock sensors that will be going on top. There's one, and there's the other one. And we already started assembling the top portion of this head, so we have our push rods installed. We used assembly lube on the bottom of them. We have our rocker trays in place, and now we can start torquing our rocker arms on. This part can get a little confusing. There's a couple things you want to watch out for. First, you want to make sure that each lifter is on the base circle of the camshaft. So you want to go through here, push on all these push rods to make sure that lifter has slid down and is riding on the camshaft. Next, you don't want to torque your rocker arm when the camshaft lobe is riding on the lifter, which means that valve would be open. That spring on the back here, these are PAC 660 springs. These are extremely strong. It's going to be causing excessive pressure on your rocker arm while you're torquing it. They could strip the threads. It's just not, you're not going to get the right torque. It's not something good to do. So how we go about doing this, we put our old crankshaft pulley bolt in here. We're going to be using our 24mm socket, and that's going to be spinning the engine over internally. Since we don't have the valley cover installed, there is an opening in the front and back of the block you can inspect through to make sure that those lifters are riding on the camshaft. Here is the exhaust port of our number 1 cylinder. You can see it's touching, and there is the second one for our intake port. You can only do this on cylinders 1, 2, 7, and 8. So to torque these, we could just look right through here, make sure these lifters are on the base circle, and we would be able to torque it. Or you can apply pressure to both the intake and exhaust push rods, and then we're going to spin the engine. We're going to wait till the exhaust push rod just slightly starts to come up. Once that starts to come up, we know that the intake one is closed, and we can begin to torque that one. Quick little prep time. We have our rocker arm bolts. We got them all cleaned off, and then we put a little bit of assembly lube on the head of the bolts. That's going to help with the installation, the torquing. And then since we do have CNC'd heads, we did use some Permatex thread sealant on the threads to make sure that there is no leak inside there. You might be able to see a little green through there. That is because that hole goes all the way through into the intake port. So that thread sealant is going to keep that from leaking. And when you torque these, you want at least 2 bolts in this rocker arm tray to help keep it aligned with all the bolt holes, preferably the farthest apart. So we can torque this bolt now. Since we spun the crank, you can see the exhaust lobe is now starting to go up. This push rod right here, the exhaust valve is the one on the right. So that means the intake valve, the push rod right here, is that farthest lobe, and that is on the base circle. So since it's on the base circle, the valve is closed. We can now torque this bolt to 22 foot-pounds. To do the exhaust port now, we're going to continue to hold tension on this push rod to make sure that the lifter stays down. We're going to rotate the crank now, and we're going to watch this rocker arm. It's going to almost open all the way, and then right when it starts to close is when we're going to stop. So there it's maxed open, and now it's going to start coming back up right there. So that means that our exhaust valve should be on the base circle, which it's not touching. Pushed it down. Boom, right there you can see it on the base circle. So now we can torque this one and continue all the way down the line. And before we put these rocker arms, we're going to put a little assembly lube into the cup, and then a little assembly lube onto the front pad where it's going to meet with the valve springs. Alrighty, so we are another day down. Came to a stopping point yesterday because for whatever reason I forgot to order the valley cover gasket and the valve cover gasket, so we had to come to a stop there. So I started prepping our ATI super dampener. This bad boy right here, this is our Harmonic dampener. This is a really nice high-end one, and this has 9 bolts that hold it on plus the main bolt in the center. And come to find out, these bolts are a T40 plus size to put those bolts in. So it's a TP TAC 40. Never heard of it before. So it's still a T40 just like a Torx bit, but it's actually a little bit larger and it's more geared off on the ends. So I have a picture right here comparing a T40 to a TP TAC 40. I didn't want to end up stripping these bolts when I was putting it in, so we stopped at Napa, and Napa was able to hook us up. They had a set in stock, so we picked those up. So I'll be able to start on the harmonic balancer right now, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to be painting, I think, the valley cover and the valve covers as well. And I did pick up some high temp engine enamel. This is basically engine paint. We got silver and we got black, trying to match those 2 colors across the entire truck. So I think it'll turn out pretty well. So it is a new day. We skipped ahead a little bit on the filming because my GoPro died and my DJI gimbal died. So we got our flex plate installed. That was torqued. We torqued those with a 3-pass sequence of, it's like 17, 36, and 74 foot-pounds, somewhere in there. Don't quote me on that. And then we just fitted our converter up. This is a Circle D stall converter. It's a 3600 to 3800 single disc. This was spec'd out for my current setup. We just have this set on there with one bolt in the back because we're trying to figure out if we needed a flex plate spacer or not going to the 4L80E. This is a little bit of a gray area and kind of confusing. So some crankshafts, depending on the year, need a flex plate spacer. Some of them just need a dished flex plate, and some of them need both, or it's a little confusing. So we got this up there, we're test fitting it. I don't believe I need the spacer. This motor does have a little bit longer of a crankshaft sticking out the back of the rear main. My old 4.8 over here has a super flush crankshaft, so if I use that on a 4L80, I'm pretty sure I would need the spacer. So everything went a lot smoother now that I did it the proper way, and we did use a little bit of oil on those grommets, so they went in just like butter. And now we can torque these to 106 inch-pounds, working from the center to the outside. You can reuse those grommets, but you cannot reuse the outside valve cover gasket. You need a new one of those. And we are almost finished right now. We can install our water pump. We do have some ARP bolts in here that are nice and black. We did that just to get rid of these ugly, nasty old bolts. We ran some stainless steel ones here in the thermostat, and we do have a 160-degree thermostat inside here. I have always ran 160-degree thermostat in the truck, and I also have one in the vet as well. So make sure it stays cold. My tuner definitely recommends at least 180 degree if you're doing a cam and stuff like that. Now that we have the water pump on, we have our gaskets in between the water pump and the block. We can now torque these in a sequence of 11 foot-pounds on the first pass and then 22 foot-pounds on the second pass. But we are almost done. We did just get our alternator bracket and the AC pump bracket back from powder coating. We got these done in satin black, so that'll look really nice. We're still waiting on our custom billet pulleys for the idler, the tensioner, and the larger alternator size pulley, since we are going to be shifting at a high RPM. We want to make sure that we don't burn that alternator up. Those custom pulleys are getting done by Hoosier Pulleys, which is just 30 minutes south of me down in Decatur, so that's pretty cool. And we already started test fitting our nitrous solenoids. So this is this 90mm plate injection style. This is a wet kit, so it does inject nitrous and fuel at the same time. We did also pick up a billet bottle bracket right here. We do have a discharge tube that'll be going down through the floor into the cab with our 3000 PSI blow-off disc inside here. And this thing is really nice. You just unscrew these, just like that, and then the bottle pulls out. Super nice and fancy. A lot better compared to these old ones. Once you got these things tight, the wing nut would start hitting on the clamp, and then you couldn't undo it. So it was kind of a flawed design. But I do know that this is a really long video, so if you are still watching, I really appreciate your guys' support, and I do want to show you guys a quick little sneak peek of where the truck is actually at right now. I haven't dropped the motor in yet, mainly because I was waiting to finish up the nitrous wiring, which I'm almost done with right now. This will be where our switch panel will go, right here. And then this is where our monetary push button for two-step and line lock we have wired up. Nice fancy push button. And we have a whole bunch of wires going inside the dash into the center console. This is our relay panel inside here that we made. So our gauges are going to go right there. All of our main wires are going to be right there for our nitrous system. And back here we have 4 rib nuts installed into the floor. And that connector is for our bottle heater, so our billet bottle bracket will all fit nice and tight right behind there. So it's just a lot of work. I've been working on the wiring now for like 3 days straight, and I am tired of it. But anyways, guys, I think that is a wrap on this video. If you're still watching, I really appreciate your guys' support. Hopefully we'll have the truck running within like the next couple of weeks. I am excited to get this bad boy broken in. Hopefully there's no issues, but I mean, with mechanics and customizing stuff, there's always going to be issues. So hopefully everything goes well. So I thank you guys so much for your support. I appreciate you guys watching, your likes, your subscribes, your comments. Let me know if there's anything else you guys want to see. And if you are interested in doing LS motors, make sure you get that book I already recommended, linked in the description below. Hope you guys are having a great day, and I'll catch you in next week's video. Peace.